Hey guys, Scott here with a new video for you. Today what we're going to be doing is a what is style, which is going to be Scottish ale or ales. I'm going to be talking a little bit of a few different styles in the family of Scottish ales, but more specifically a wee heavy or a Scotch ale. And I have a beer dissection from Founders, which you could be probably familiar with, called Dirty Bastard Scotch Ale. Which again, I don't want to get ahead of myself yet, but I am going to discuss the different types of Scotch ale or Scottish ales. But this one's pretty popular. Founders makes a breakfast stout that's very popular. They make a porter that's very popular. So I'm expecting this to be very good. So with the what is style, and it's called Scottish ales. Now, what are Scottish ales? Now, according to the BJCP, which is the Beer Judge Certification Program, there's 3 to 4 main styles. There's a Scottish light, heavy, export, okay, and then what they call a wee heavy. Now, they're all going to be malty beers. These are not going to be, these are going to be very lowly hopped beers. When I say lowly hop, in the whereabouts 10, maybe 20 IBUs. When you pour it and you look at it, it's usually going to be kind of like anywhere from an amber copper to the very most kind of a light brown kind of beer. A lot more malt dominance here, even to a point that you may even get like kind of a caramel kind of flavor to it, maybe even butterscotch, things like that with this style of beer. With the light, the heavy, the export, and the wee heavy, what you're going to get, similar to the bitters. If you watched my English bitter video, we talked about ordinary, best, and strong bitter. They just kind of go up in alcoholic strength ever so slightly, as well as bitterness. Scottish ales are very similar to that. You know, a Scottish light, which really is not, you don't really find that in the bottle. It's usually cask conditioned over in Scotland, or I'm sure England has a version of it, like a mild that does this. But you're looking at like 2.5% alcohol to 3. The heavy is like 3.3 to 4.6, 4.9, and then the export, Scottish export, gets from like high 4s to about 6. Then you start getting into the wee heavies or the Scotch ales, which can start pushing, 6 to 10% alcohol. The one I have today through Founders, I believe, is about 8.5% alcohol. Now, how they got there, traditionally this was brewed, the Scottish brewers actually, when they would do the malt, it would be with like a pale malt with some roasted barley for color. And then they would kind of do a long boil. Usually a lot of times the boil when in the brewing process is 60 to 90 minutes. They would even do it for several hours, and they would reduce some of the water out of the beer and kind of caramelize the beer a little bit in the pot to try to give these flavors. They also, what they would do is when they do the mash, which is when they put all the grains in with the hot water, they use a higher temperature, usually about 158 degrees, okay? And there's what they call alpha amylase, which is an enzyme that bites off bigger chunks of the carbohydrate. So through the brewing process, the yeast have a harder time breaking that down. So it leaves a lot of sugars behind. So these beers are going to have a little bit more residual sweetness to them versus someone that's brewing a beer and they do the mash around 148 degrees Fahrenheit, which they use beta amylase is more dominant, and they bite off smaller chunks of carbohydrate, and the yeast can eat all that a little bit more efficiently. So the beer is a little drier, not as sweet. So that's kind of where, when you taste these beers, especially this one today, a Scotch ale or a wee heavy, I'm trying to think of the other commercial one. I think Samuel Smith makes one. Track Warehouse is another one. Belhaven makes a Scotch ale, a wee heavy, and you'll taste these. These are going to be a little bit more sweeter than, like say, some of your Belgian beers, okay? Because some of the sugar will be left behind. But again, when you go from Scottish light, which are usually cask conditioned, you don't usually get them in bottles, all the way up to a wee heavy, the alcoholic strength is going up. But they're all going to have some degree of, they're not going to be roasty like a porter or a stout, but they're going to have that kind of a caramel, full mouth feel, full bodied, maybe like a toffee kind of taste to it. And just depends on which brand, but definitely kind of a butterscotch sweet, residual sweetness type of beer. But again, obviously in Scotland, they don't, produce a lot of hops there, any hops. They do ferment over in Scotland at cooler temperatures, or at least classically nowadays. I'm sure things are a little bit differently. And that will keep the ester formation down less. So these beers are going to be more dominant with malt and just enough hop bitterness to kind of balance some of that sweetness. And again, from Scottish Light, Heavy, Export, and Wee Heavy, the alcoholic strength goes up, and the hops and the IBU units only go up very subtly over the course of those beers. So that's what you're going to expect with a Scottish ale, and or this one particularly today is called a Scotch ale, also known as a Wee Heavy. Okay, so if you ever see that style, typically if you see it at your local brewery many times, they're only going to have it served maybe in smaller little glasses. So anyway, that's the what is style today, guys, is Scotch ale, Scottish ale. A little info, I can go on and on about it, but I try to give you guys a little bit of information for those that aren't that familiar, but try not to go on too much of a tangent. So this one, Founder's Dirty Bastard, is an example of a Scotch ale or a Wee Heavy registering in around 8.5% alcohol. I'm just going to be serving this in my classic kind of tulip glass here today. So let's crack this bad boy open. Okay. And, this is one that you can find pretty commonly at a lot of your local beer stores from Founders. And probably sitting next to their breakfast stout that they have that's pretty common, and their porter also, which is pretty common, okay? So let's take a look at this. So I'm pouring, still aggressively these days. So we got about, 3 to 4 inches of head on there. We usually like to kind of keep it about 1 to 2. Light tan, beige kind of head. We have a nice amber to copper color. The SRMs on this, for those of your home brewers, I think between 8 to 10 or 12, depending on which Scottish ale we're talking about. We have a nice copper to amber, or amber, I should say, to copper type color. Pretty clear. You may not be able to see through it on camera there, but very nice looking. But there is some clarity there. I'm able to kind of look right through it. So let's take a sniff of the aroma. Yeah, so without a doubt, immediately you kind of get that this is going to be malt dominant. You kind of get that slight caramel butterscotch aroma, maybe slightly nutty. Off the malt. There's not much, if any, perceive any hop aroma here. Again, this will not be like your IPAs, your New England IPAs, even like a brown ale. It may look like a brown ale, but the brown ale is usually going to have a lot more hops to it. But very nice. But you kind of get that, again, malt forward, kind of caramel butterscotch, maybe toffee type of aroma to it. Okay, guys, so cheers. Okay. So, again, it's definitely medium to full-bodied. Low carbonation, low to medium carbonation. So again, you're not going to get that effervescence there. On the malt, again, you kind of get that burnt caramel, slightly burnt caramel kind of flavor, toffee on the, maybe with like even a slight roasted walnut kind of flavor of the malt. Essentially no hop flavor at all here. Get a little warmth on the back end. Low bitterness. Again, remember, this is going to be malt forward beer, so you're going to get a lot of malty kind of sweet flavors there. And there is some residual sweetness, but even on the aftertaste, you kind of get that roasted nut, caramel that was cooked just a little too long. You kind of just start getting into that, I don't want to say roastiness. This is not like a porter or a stout. But you kind of get that, again, caramel, butterscotch, slight toffee kind of flavor on the malt. Very nice though, but you can tell the body on this is medium to full. Definitely going to be sipping these, but very nice. You know, if you haven't had one, I mean, this is a nice style. There's other styles out there, like from Belhaven and things like that. This is very nice, though. Just trying to get some other, you know, things I can kind of communicate with you so you know what you're expecting with this. But you can see now that the head is settled down a little bit, we're looking at that amber, dark amber, the kind of copper color, pretty clear beer. It looks like a brown ale. It has more maltiness than that, less of the floral, spicy hop aromas that you may get with an American brown ale, less earthy, woodsy aromas from, say, an English brown ale. This is going to kind of be basically more dominant with the malt. It's, I think, also derived from British milds and also Burton ales. If you are a beer geek, this style was kind of derived from that. So again, guys, very good. I definitely give this an A. For Scotch ale. But again, what to expect, a malty, lowly hopped kind of beer, just enough hops to balance it, because there is some balance here, but you definitely are going to get hit with kind of that caramel, butterscotch, toffee kind of malt flavor here. Hop forward. Beers like this, you know, some of your fish and chips, you know, rich kind of shepherd's pie would be go well with this. Or this is another one because it's sitting at 8.5%. Some of them get as high as 10% Scotch ales or wee heavies. Sitting by the fireplace if it's wintertime. I would not say this is a patio crusher, like a wit beer would be, or a you know, a German Pilsner could be. But very good, this style, okay? So anyway, guys, today was a what is style Scotch ale, Scottish ale, light, heavy, export, and wee heavy, ramping up the alcoholic strength. And I did a beer dissection on Founder's Dirty Bastard. Definitely give this a range, and I definitely recommend this if you find it. And it is pretty commonly available, or at least some other maybe more authentic, let's say Belhaven. And again, I think it was Trackwire's House, if I'm pronouncing that properly, is another one, to try out the style. But definitely malt forward. All right, guys, hopefully you got something out of that. And until the next video, have a great day. Take care.